Here we go. Coming to you live in this beautiful day here in South Florida. This is Quique Posada with Aldea Global TV. We're so happy to be again with you, this time around in English. It's always good to have someone to practice this beautiful language with, and therefore we're going to be talking about incredible topics with the one and only, the way our great therapist, hypnotist. She is the leading lady, the magnet lady. She has a consultation here in South Florida. Gaya Stepanian is coming to you tonight with the magnet lady. That's the name of the show, and find your zen in life. Gaya is always regularly coming to our show, to our channel, and we're so lucky to have her being bilingual, and she has a lot of information to share about therapy, holistic treatments, and all this wonderful stuff. So Gaya, welcome again. And we were just talking before, every time you come, what's going on, how is the therapy doing, what kind of people are coming to you, like what's going on in your lives, what do you feel like talking about. And tonight you mentioned something about emotions, about trauma, and all these experiences we have in life and how they reflect in our health. So the mic is yours. We want to hear about this relationship between emotions, events in our life, and how biomagnetism and all the therapies you so wonderfully perform can really bring a solution to them. Welcome.
Hi, Quique. Hello, Aldea Global listeners. Just apologizing real quick to all of our Spanish speaker followers, but you know, we wanted to do something for those English speakers, and so today I wanted to talk about a more really deep subject, right? Something that I think is one of the hardest things for people to talk about and share. It's something that for about 30 years now, not over 30 years, but about 30 years now, I've been in the field of mental health and physical health, and it's been an issue that I've seen again and again and again. And yet in this work, in the alternative healing work, is where I've seen the quickest, the fastest, the most compassionate results, right? Because talking about topics like having your body physically invaded, physical violence, sexual assault or violence, rape, or being touched inappropriately are always very delicate subjects for people to disclose. And I've met people who've gone for decades and decades, or most of their life, without expressing hidden pains, anger, resentment, deep-rooted because of an experience that they may have had in which their body was invaded physically by someone else, maybe as a child. Sometimes even the memories are blocked, because the body will do that to protect us. Sometimes, you know, some folks don't even have memory. They vaguely suspect, and that's one of the ways that the body will protect us. But then there are others that have a very raw memory of experiences like these, and they live with those harsh, painful past events that affect their relationships throughout life, that they affect their physical body too. And as the years go by, the physical manifestations of events like those that are unhealed take a toll on us. So some of the things that I've seen happen when folks are unable, to be able to express those things freely, those painful events freely, are issues in their throat where they feel like they can't swallow, or it's hard to swallow, or they develop thyroid problems, or the parathyroid, which manages our bones and our ability to process calcium, and therefore that affects their bones, and pains that they have, or weaknesses, or even becoming more prone to accidents. It's like as if we don't heal an event in which we felt we were punished, and therefore we attract other painful events that also punish us, punish our physical body. Or we attract other people who somehow reflect that embarrassing event, or an event that we felt ashamed of, or that we felt guilty for some reason. And so then folks will attract other events in their life in which they will feel shame, or they'll carry shame deep-rooted, or they'll carry blame or guilt. And those events then take a manifestation on the physical body, not just in the throat area, like our thyroid and our parathyroid, but also, the entire throat area, our mouth, our tonsils, and this area can also resonate with the reproductive area. And so you'll see men that have issues along the prostate lines, or urinary tract lines, or women that will have chronic yeast infections or urinary tract infections.
It's amazing how we often hear about all these ailments, all these diseases that you are mentioning, and it never comes to mind how could they be related to some kind of emotion from the past. Now that we have been able to be exposed to all this information we've been visiting over the recent years, it's hard to think of why. I mean, like we always say, there's always interests, and it's been hidden from us. But now that you know that some of these, maybe all of them, are rooted in some event, what's the next step? How do they go about going and cleaning and healing all of these? Now, you mentioned that you do a combination of therapies, things that you do. Can you mention us some of them, please?
Yeah, Gike, I think that in my practice, since I've really delved into the alternative medicine field, biomagnetism, I find, is one of the tools that for me are key in being able to help heal physical and emotional things, but also to be able to, in this dialogue with the body, because in biomagnetism you use kinesthetic responses, which are muscle testing, and so you can ask any question and there's an involuntary muscle response or cellular response, and so the extremities will lengthen or shorten as this dialogue progresses in a session. And so you're able to tap into where the emotions are hidden, what toxins or germs are drawn to the body that affect specific areas that resonate with the experience of having been invaded, or having been shamed, or having carrying rage from being victimized in this kind of way, in which you can be tricked into something, or trapped into something, or invaded in your innocence or in your vulnerability. And so these are some of the symptoms, some of the manifestations. Fertility is one of the other areas that I've seen over the years that is also affected, because if a person has had this kind of experience, particularly in their childhood, they may want to guard themselves and their future generations by unconsciously telling the body, let's not even go there. Let's not even allow our bodies to bring a child into the world, because we don't want them to then have to experience what we've experienced. And so I've seen fertility be affected by these events. Another thing that I've seen that's very common is parasites. Even though medically it's not popular in the US to be tested for parasites, parasites tend to become a problem in bodies that have felt that they've been invaded, or that they've invaded somebody else too, right? But here we're talking about abuse. And so when you feel vulnerable that way, that you've been attacked, or that somebody's imposed himself in your space, right? Then the body can also attract these little microscopic invaders that are parasites, and parasites can then create a slew of physical issues that affect our upper respiratory tract, our skin, because the skin is also another thing that's very vulnerable when we want to hide ourselves, when we want to create an extra shell of protection so that people don't see us. So then psoriasis or acne or these abscesses or rashes can manifest themselves in the body as a layer of protection. It's like a turtle has a hard shell, and so that these physical pustules can develop in our body to create that extra layer, so that people don't see us, or that they don't want to come and invade us, right? So that's another way that's manifested. And our gut can also be affected. I mean, there's a whole slew of things, but when folks go through an event that's so traumatic and so painful, it's natural to feel rage, to feel anger, to feel hate. I've seen folks that have a very hard time even wanting to identify themselves as being able to hate, because the word is so heavy. It's almost like, no, only bad people can hate. But the truth is that it's an emotion that's very common in humanity, and when we can see it for what it is, then we can really heal it and release it, right? It's called, call it for what it is, and then we can work on it.
You mentioned that you had a case you wanted to share about a little bit, that it really touched you in a special way, and it had to do with rape.
Yes.
So perhaps you want to share with us, and how it reflects, or it expressed in their health, and what was the solution you offered.
Well, in this case, it was a gentleman who was Native American. He is Native American, and in his ancestry, there was the emotion of that, from ancestral lines, because we carry these emotions, generation after generation, until we finally, somebody does the work and heals it and releases it, right? So that was the work of this gentleman, was to heal this ancestral lineage of shame, or of being vulnerable, of innocence lost. Right? So when we think of Native Americans, we think of an innocence lost. We think of people who lived in a land that was, connected with nature, and they lived in something that was familiar, and then all of a sudden they're invaded by people who have a different mentality, who came with a different purpose and mission, and many of them were tricked into,
I can think of many minorities that have been extracted in a way, like think about African Americans and slavery, and they always talk about this collective, inconscient, like subconscious feeling, perception of guilt in a way, and many other emotions that are negative, that belong to the whole culture, to the whole ethnic group. So perhaps that's also the case with your clients.
Yeah. So if you harbor emotions of shame or of in this particular case, shame, innocence lost, being tricked, being invaded. These were experiences that were real to this gentleman in his life, of his life experience, but there was also this deep connection of cellular memory of his ancestral lines that were carrying the same emotion. And so it's important in doing this work to see how far back are we carrying some of our feelings. And one of the things that I've seen is to understand that we have a loyalty to our ancestors. And out of love, sometimes we repeat stories, right? It's like, I love my ancestors, and therefore I want to connect with them, and therefore I want to suffer their suffering. Even though that's at a very unconscious level, the conscious mind isn't saying, hey, let me suffer. The conscious mind is saying, you know what, I'm having this experience, and, why is this happening to me, for me? It's not fair. But the unconscious, deep down, is carrying memories of our ancestors that had the same experiences. And the unconscious says, out of love, let me relive what you lived, because I want to be connected to you. It's in our bloodlines. And sometimes you don't have to go that far back. You could see it in generations of, sometimes in the female lineage, sometimes in the male lineage, sometimes in our maternal lineage, sometimes in our paternal lineage, and so on and so on. And you'll see that the same repeated patterns occur once again. And either they invert the roles, right? So sometimes it's the abuser and then the abused. And sometimes it's one and the same. Oftentimes the abuser was abused, and therefore, they just maintain that cycle. And so in doing this wonderful work, it's amazing. Sometimes I've seen in a single session, people are able to heal this deep wound of being victimized, of the shame of having been violated. And it's such a wonderful thing to see when you combine the biomagnetism with the emotional decoding work, to be able to lift the person out of the anger and the shame and the resentment and the hate and the hurt and the victimhood, to being in their power and releasing the past. It really is beautiful work. And I feel very fortunate to have stumbled upon this work, because it's miles and miles and miles away from traditional psychotherapy. My background is in psychology, and so in all of those years and all of that practice and all of that work, it could take ages to heal something like that. It could take a long time just to get to some of the information extract the information from somebody, where when you use the muscle testing and biomagnetism, the unconscious is working, so that's the one that's responding, and you can get the information from the get-go. You don't have to dig for so long to get to the results and to get to the information. It's pretty cool.
We're live with Gaya Stepanian, the Magnet Lady. You can find her in her website, findyourzeninlife.com. Also in the Facebook page, Find Your Zen in Life. In Instagram, it's the Magnet Lady, double Y, right?
Double Y, yeah.
At the end. So these topics you can always find in our channel. Very not so often in English, but we are happy to come to new audiences, because that's kind of a complaint we get sometimes on your side, on our side. Many of our listeners are English speakers, and they rather listen to us in this language. So summing it up a little bit, like this, virtually anything that happens in your past has an emotion, has an impact. Sometimes it's positive. Why not? We have also happy memories, but very often as well they're not that happy, and they do have a reflection in our health. Almost everything can be treated. I mean, have you stumbled with anything like, you said I really can't deal with this?
There are times when I do refer out because out of loyalty to the best interest of the client, I have to always be honest with myself in terms of what it is that my strengths are as a therapist and where I have my own limitations. And there are times when I will refer out. I have a network of other wonderful therapists that when I feel that there's certain things that would benefit somebody to do, I will refer them to that person, and it's a great thing because then I get to get the feedback that was exactly what they needed. And fortunately, I can also ask the body, would this benefit them? And I get the responses there. And so yeah, there are things that I know that those are not my strengths, and therefore somebody else could take them the next mile or next 100 miles.
You are right now promoting a course you're going to be presenting, right? And it has to do with, how do you say it in iridology? Iridology.
Yes.
Okay. And this is happening in Miami, March 28th. And it's going to be imparted in English, in Spanish, but with English translation. Simultaneous.
Yes.
And we have the flyer right here. Can you tell us a little bit about this course?
Well, one of the wonderful things that I've seen in the iris is that the iris particularly holds all this wonderful information about us. I mean, the body is this amazing structure, right? And when we tap into the iris can also tell us down to the year of traumatic events that occurred. When the person had a major life event that really affected them emotionally, mentally, and how much stress the person is undergoing, and what organs are being affected, what glands are being affected, what systems, and what tendencies or even genetic predispositions that we may be carrying. I remember seeing it was 3 generations of individuals, and you could see the same predispositions in mother, grandmother, and granddaughter. Same exact predispositions, just in the reading of the iris. And so there's a wealth of knowledge to be had in that study. And so in this 2-day training, I, along with Jesus Conde, we're going to be doing the training here in Miami to prepare future iridologists. And it really is a wonderful field of work, because in that you can also help with nutrition, see what it is that the person needs. The body's a system, and when one thing is out of whack, it affects the others. And you could see that if for example somebody doesn't sleep at night, there's a particular organ that's affected. And so when you look at, our organs have like peak hours of functioning, and so when you can connect the peak hour of functioning of a particular organ with when the person has like a drop in energy during the day or insomnia during the night, it's a science. It's a beautiful science. And so yes, I'm looking forward to teaching that and to be able to use that tool, because as iridologists you can use the iris's information to be able to help healing in the person. And nutrition is another aspect of that healing. Also, I'm this month on the 30th with Monica Bermudez, we're going to be doing, this one's going to be in Spanish, but alternating months we're going to be doing them English and Spanish, a past life regression. and that's to also heal wounds of the past. So for those of you who are bilingual speakers and do speak Spanish, that's going to be in the city of Coral Gables on January 30th, and it's a 2-hour process of really looking at hidden emotions, decoding those, and then through regression and Reiki, releasing them and healing them. It's beautiful work. I invite you all to join us on January 30th. And you can find all the information about the classes and trainings on the website.
Exactly. That's findyourzeninlife.com. So the good thing with Gaya is that you don't exactly know which therapy is going to suit you best, but with her knowing so many, she will find the right one. Do you try like each one of them, or do you feel by intuition which one is the one that suits better the person?
I mean, it's a combination of intuition, and also, I can always confirm with the muscle testing, and the muscle testing will always give me the information that the person needs. But a lot of intuition happens, and then it's this beautiful process that I really encourage anyone who has had a life event that was traumatic, in which they've been carrying for so long, the heaviness of that, the burden of feeling alone with that hurt and heaviness, to seek help, because it doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out, painful process of years of therapy. It really doesn't. I've seen things happen very quickly, and to be able to release that, and to be able to walk lighter in life, to be able to feel happy again, to be able to breathe fully, to be able to connect with people at a deeper level without having that wall, that heavy wall of protection, to be able to be your true self, and not the hurt self, but the true beautiful nature that you are. I definitely encourage people to seek their healing. We all have courage. We just have to dig in, pull it out, and say, okay, it's time. It's time to release that heaviness, that burden. So.
And with your sweetness, it also helps a lot, Gaya.
Oh, thank you, Kiki.
It's not the same. Maybe going to a doctor, somebody who is. Some of these folks can be so cold, and what we sometimes really need is the gentle touch of somebody who can feel for you and just empathize, with your story. And if they can also do all these therapies, what else can you ask for? So I think we're gonna call it the end. There's a lot of people tuning in. Many of our villagers. This is the global village. That's what Aldea Global means. It's a global village. Many of them are tuning in, and we're happy to count on you, Gaya. It's gonna be a year now. It's been incredible having you here.
Thank you, Kike. It's been
as well as Monica. I mean, it was a wonderful discovery when we met. So I strongly recommend that you contact Gaya Stepanian. She operates in South Florida, but the good thing with these therapies are that it's all energy, and they can be treated from a distance.
That's
so
true.
They can find you, and you do like all these same diagnostics. You can treat them anywhere, right?
Yeah, so the work can be done anywhere in the world, really. It's a beautiful thing to be able to connect with people and identify what's going on with them. It doesn't matter where they are, whether they're in Europe, in China, in Mexico, and Canada. It doesn't matter. Or, couple counties down the road.
You can always drive down, no? If you are in in Central Florida or anywhere. So that's going to be it for now. We're going to be meeting again next week. You're coming with Monica.
Yes.
Monica Bermudez.
Yes, looking forward
Because you
to it.
have
The regression.
The regression.
Yes, our regression.
So you're going to be talking about that. Regression to past lives. Amazing.
It's amazing what we uncover that we've been carrying for so long, and in these regressions we can get so much clarity and release things, and also connect. Sometimes we just need to connect with this beautiful source energy that we have, that has all the wisdom that we, could ever want or imagine. And when we can connect with that, we get beautiful messages that provide so much healing. So yeah, I really enjoy that work, especially with Monica.
You two must have come from another life. I tell you that. All right, folks. So thank you for tuning in. This is Aldea Global. If you like what you hear, what you see, make sure you follow, subscribe, like, and it's going to be until the next. Perhaps in English, perhaps in Spanish. We don't know. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great night. Bye.